let's get to a little more Owen Tippett talk from yesterday. I want to start it with a thread from our buddy Kurt over at Broad Street Hockey.
We love Kurt.
Reacting to one of your myth points in your article yesterday, the myth of the abnormally streaky scoring of Owen Tippett. Now, yeah, absolutely. We looked at it yesterday and we're like, yeah, man, you just watch him and sometimes he looks like the best player on the ice for a shift, a game, a week, 2 weeks, and then it's just a guy out there. Yeah. He might be all right, but not someone you're like, fuck, yeah, I need him on my first line. Yeah. Absolutely. And you look then at the monthly scoring, it's like, I don't know, he looks pretty consistent to me. He has a couple of months that pop, but, a range of 0.57 to 0.66 basically points per game every month, except for the 2 months that really pop. It's like, that's the same thing.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, with Tippett that he is as much rightfully as much shit as we gave the Flyers for their late March, early April swoon that knocked them out of a playoff spot. The only guy on that team that kept scoring through that bad run was Tippett.
Yeah.
He was the only guy who was still basically scoring at a season-long rates. Everybody else fell off a cliff. Tippett did not go cold. He was still producing.
And then Kurt decided to go a step further.
Hey-o.
Look at Charlie, hooking people up with ideas so that they can do my work for me. I love it. Everyone's doing work for Bill. Kurt breaks it down. Of the 132 forwards last year who played 6+ games in every month and had at least 40 points on the season, Tippett's best to worst month range of 0.3 is the fourth lowest of the entire group. That is absolutely freaking insane. He's actually one of the least streaky scorers
on a month-to-month basis.
On a month-to-month basis. And the game-to-game, the week-to-week, we saw it. But at the end of every month, he is not streaky.
Yeah, the numbers are there.
He is very much one of the most consistent guys. Like, the only players more consistent than him on a month-to-month basis, Chris Kreider, Brady Tkachuk, Ryan O'Reilly, and then Barkov right below him, Mangiapane, Tyler Bertuzzi. It's very interesting. And then you look at the most streaky guys. It's a pretty funny list. William Nylander, Steven Stamkos, Nathan McKinnon, TK on the list. It's like, wow. Matt Tkachuk's on the list. Elias Pettersson. There's a lot of Mikko Rantanen comes in at 12th. There's the best players in hockey are streaky as shit.
Yeah.
Yes, Connor McDavid just puts up points in every game. So he probably doesn't even rank on either of these lists.
And also, for example, when you're looking at Nathan McKinnon as the third most streaky, it's worth noting that his low month of 8.75 is better than Tippett's high month.
Yes. That's the other.
He's streaky because when he's on a streak, he's the best player in the world.
Yeah, he's 2 points a game. It's like, well, yes, when he's not that, it looks like he's streaky, but it's 8.75. He's still a point a game at that point.
He's still better better than best Owen Tippett when he's in a cold streak.
It's just very funny to look at the streakiness thing. Everyone is streaky, and it really doesn't matter. At the end of that's why they play 82. Yeah. Because that's the sample size you need to figure out who is who. And at the end of the season, your numbers are your numbers. It's remarkable how consistent guys' numbers are year to year, I think. Wow, 3 straight years of exactly 42 assists. That's interesting.
True talent.
No, that's what he is.
You remember that guy, Chris Davis, who played for the Oakland Athletics, where I think it was 4 straight years he finished with a 247 batting average?
I think so,
which was one of the most wild, how the hell did he do that kinds of things ever.
That is such a...
We're talking decimal points
That is such a random statistic. Batting average can be so random, and it's yeah, man, 24.7% exactly
every
3 or 4 years in a row. That's what you're looking at. And I just looked at Kurt's thread. It's this is absolutely wild. We're going to talk more about Owen Tippett today anyway, but what did you think when you saw that? Oh yeah, it is. The streakiness is a myth, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe the importance, maybe we just put too much importance on streakiness. He's consistent, but he's still a 50-point player. It's not oh yeah, he's consistent. He is what he is.
Well, you want me to throw some real zaniness at you? I think my general view of streakiness is that streakiness itself is streaky, in that I don't think it is a repeatable skill in that I think some guys 1 year might be very streaky, and then the next year might not be streaky at all because streakiness is streaky. I think there are probably a few guys who are naturally very streaky, who are, when they're hot, they score all their points and bunches and then they go cold for a month. But I think for the most part, you got to remember that hockey is a sport played on ice with a bunch of guys skating on knives. There's a lot of randomness. And a lot of what we think of as streakiness is just the puck didn't bounce your way for 2 weeks.
And then at the end of it, when we're talking about putting up points, especially scoring goals, there's a 6'3" guy wearing 100 pounds worth of pads.
It's wearing body armor.
who's the best athlete on the ice, trying to stop you and steal your joy. It is a random game.
Yeah, there's a lot of randomness.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that there aren't guys who are naturally streaky. There aren't guys who are naturally consistent. There are. I'm sure that there are some guys who have that true talent level one way or the other. Just like there are some guys who, if there's a large enough sample size, we would learn that they are naturally clutch. There are some guys who naturally do step their game up in the in the biggest moments. There are some guys that over a large enough sample size, we learn that they do naturally shrink from the big moments. That is part of who they are as people. But a lot of the people that get tagged with the clutch tag or get tagged with the choker tag, it's just because they've been in 3 playoff runs their entire life. And maybe out of those 21 games, 7 of them, they were sick. And 10 of them, they were playing through a broken foot. And they just happened to have bad luck during that run. And then they get tagged with the choker label or whatever. Or they happen to be on the hottest streak of their life when the playoffs hit and boom, now we think of them as these oh my God, he's so clutch. There are some guys who probably do have that skill. And there are some guys who probably do have that negative, but it's probably a lot fewer guys on both sides than we think exist.
There's a real thick middle, I would say. Not that he was the Conn Smythe winner or anything, but I just think, Jeff Carter finally didn't break his foot, and guess what? They won the cup. It just wasn't here.
What do you know?
So we talked yesterday a little bit about how Owen Tippett's raw scoring totals didn't improve really. He put up basically the exact same stats: 27 to 28 goals, I think 49 to 53 points, the exact same season statistically, pretty much. But he did make improvements in other areas.
He did. He was a better 5-on-5 player, I would say, at least from a scoring standpoint. He shot the puck a lot more. That was the big one. He turned from a good volume shooter, a guy who shoots the puck a solid amount for a top 6 forward, to one of the most frequent shooters in the NHL.
I think he was 11th in total shots on goal.
And then if you account for ice time, he was in the top 3 in basically every single category.
So, and you have it in your article. So yes, Tippett's offensive production didn't improve dramatically year over year, but Tippett still made important, measurable strides in other key areas. Do you, Charlie O'Connor, believe these improvements to his overall game will ultimately result in greater production? Do you see that coming?
Yes. I don't know if it's going to be the jump that people are hoping for, but I do think that if you're shooting the puck the amount that Owen Tippett shoots the puck, and if that proves to be a sustainable skill, one that he holds for this season and for the coming years to come, that is going to lead to more goals because number one, you're just putting yourself in more opportunities to score goals. You're shooting more. You're getting to dangerous areas. You're getting to shooting areas, even if they're not super dangerous areas. And that's a skill. It's a skill to be able to create your own shot, to put yourself in position to shoot. That is a skill, and I do think it's going to pay dividends. Number two, and it always comes back to this, man, if they could just make the power play decent. Then, because you look at the 5-on-5 production that he had last year versus the year before, measurably better this year. The problem was that the power play, well, it was bad the year before. It was even worse this past year. Even worse. If they could just get the power play to operating at a 20% clip, which again, we've talked about, not even that great. They would put them 22nd in the league. If they could just get to 20%, I think Owen Tippett's numbers would maybe not have looked like a superstar's numbers, but they would have looked more like he took a not insignificant leap in terms of his quality of play, which I think he did. I think he got better last year. He didn't take a star turn, but he got better.
All right. I was trying to come up with a comparison in numbers to Jeff Carter here, and the shots per game very much went along with the scoring jump. So that's not what we're looking at with Tippett, because he had the big shot jump, but the scoring jump didn't go. But I do think it ultimately, like, if he can maintain this level of 5-on-5 production, because it's very good.
It's good, yeah.
And just give us something on the power
It's
play.
just anything.
Like,
Just a little bit.
5 more power play goals. I think he had 5 last year. If he has 10, it's like, oh, man, yeah, he's a 30-goal scorer. Look at that.
Yeah.
He's a 35-goal scorer.
Every year he's scoring 30, 35 goals because the Flyers, again, and we're not even asking for the power play to be good. We're just asking for it to be not terrible.
Not asking for the world
Functional.
here. Just, like, don't be the fucking worst. Like, if they finish... What is... this is totally different, but we've talked about this a number of times. And if you haven't read the Owen Tippett article yet, it's available on allphly.com for diehards only, as are all Charlie's season reviews. The Jamie Drysdale article coming up. It dropped today. We'll probably talk about it like Thursday. So if you want to be ready for that, go to allphly.com, sign up to be a diehard.
Released the Jamie Drysdale article today. We'll talk about that later in the week, but that's also for diehards only.
Yeah. What... If you were making the decisions, what % jump would keep Rocky Thompson employed, at least in this role? Like, where do they realistically need to be?
Are you asking what my preference or for the Flyers?
Because the Flyers are probably going to keep him.
I think if the Flyers make any, like, if they jump to like 18%, I think they keep him.
Okay.
For me, it would be they have to clear 20. With Michkov, you got to clear 20. That's the only way. And I'm not even saying I would necessarily fire him entirely.
No, just someone else in that role.
I would take the power play duties away from him. If the Flyers improve by 5 percentage points and are still at 17% and are still like 28th, yeah, you're not coaching the power play anymore, dude. You got Matvei Michkov. Come on, you can do better. Maybe you can't do better. We can do better.
I guess for me, it would come down to, like, what does Michkov look like overall?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, the power play is where he, like, all right, man, you're not ready for maybe he is. Like, maybe he's a star right away. But it's, all right, 5-on-5, you're still young, you're learning the game.
Getting used to the fact the players are bigger and faster and they close gaps quicker. You have less space. Guess where you have more space?
Yeah.
When you have one extra guy.
The power play, like, he should probably eat a little bit on the power play.
You would hope.
Now, the power play has stunk for the last several years, so who the hell knows? But it should take a jump. But
this is the bet they're taking, because if they really thought that Rocky Thompson was as bad of a power play coach as I believe the vast majority of the fan base believes he is, they would have fired him. They clearly don't think he's that bad of a power play coach, which tells me they're pinning it on the talent and the mix of players they have. If Matvei Michkov, who they have sold to everyone as like the high-end talent we need, if he comes in and it still doesn't get better, I think that theory, you have to throw that theory out the window. Because suddenly it's like, okay, well, if Michkov isn't talented enough, you're still going to say you don't have enough talent? How much talent do you need to be at least passable?
To be just not horrible.
Yeah.
All right, that's a fair point.
We all silly like the mayor.